Hey guys, it's Nick Contino, and I haven't made an unscripted comedy series that I've developed, created, and showrun yet.
This is Haven't Made It Yet.
Hello and welcome. It's Indie Not Filmed. Haven't Made It Yet.
I'm Jannik and Hayden.
I'm Hayden Garrett.
And this is a podcast.
Which you're listening to.
And today we got Nick on here. And Nick is
a producer. And we've worked with, Jannik closely has worked with Nick on Farmer Wants a Wife. I worked with him in spirit at another location.
also on the show at another location. Nick is a very fun guy, got some good stories, and he has made it.
He's made it a lot.
He's made for his age, he's made a lot. He's 16.
He's going on 17.
Going on 17. And he's not. But he really is pitching shows, making shows, and he'll take us through the process of that, the behind the scenes of reality TV, which we haven't really done before. So I'm excited to get into that.
Yeah. A lot of cool questions coming your way.
Yeah. I felt like I had at least one question that made me sound smart this time, right? Wouldn't you say I had at least one good, right? Right?
The show's called Haven't Made
Made It Yet. It's a podcast.
It's a podcast.
Well, I guess the classic way of making it for me was like Emmy, but I feel like that's kind of winning an Emmy, but I feel like that's kind of weird to kind of just.
I mean, that counts. It opens doors. Winning an Emmy, it's marketing.
But it's awesome because if I've tried so many times, like with our own shows, like I do all the award submission process, and it's basically just give us $250,000 and we'll give you.
Really? That's the process?
It's you have to spend. You have to do events for the Academy members. You have to spend doing ads all over town, billboards.
For your consideration.
For FYC stuff. It's wild.
It's like a whole nother show of effort and money that you're putting into making your show win.
We don't have an extra $200K lying around to like get Holy Moly. And that's just to get nominated, and then you have to hit the floor hard. I just keep going with the showrunner thing, but... So I just started by saying making it for me.
I mean, I liked what we just talked about.
Did it.
Shit.
keep doing it.
But yeah, we can keep talking. I mean, I guess to get into more specifics of the feeling of you having an Emmy, or the where you think you will be in the state of you having this thing that is the award of an Emmy of a show that you made. What would that feeling be?
I mean, it'd be euphoric. I mean, it's one of those things where you learn from every project that you work on. And I've been like writing and producing since I was like in middle school. And it's like, I'm taking all of those little nuggets of knowledge and all those people I've worked with me up until this pinnacle of winning this, this little statue, as shallow as it may be. But I feel like it represents my whole journey and everyone I've met along the way versus kind of just a materialistic thing. Yeah. And I really shouldn't put all my hopes and dreams in winning one because it's very, very difficult to do it. But I feel like that respect from peers on that current project that I'm working on it
gives that process. I like what you said about like all these projects are like my dad says this about my mom. He dated around a lot before he met my mom, and my mom has always tried to ask him how many women he's dated, and he responds to, "Every woman was a stepping stone to you, babe." And
very strategic.
So smooth.
Very strategic, and he's
like a U.S. general.
He's yet to tell how many women he dated before.
Maybe he doesn't remember.
He probably
so
doesn't.
many.
He probably doesn't.
Lost track.
An ocean, babe.
Ocean. But you're the biggest. You're the ocean. But I relate that with the projects that I do, of like all these projects. It doesn't matter if I'm doing camera work or if I'm in tech or in art, they're all going to help get, like, I learn from each project to the next project. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like the Emmy Award is the collective. It's not the I won an award for this show. It's I won an award for all this progress to get to this point. and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I guess it could be the start of what you were talking about being able to be selective about your projects, is that Emmy, because if you're an Emmy winner, you just have more power and you can be selective to a degree, I would assume.
I think so too. And it's one of those things like I guess it's all tying into the show, but I haven't gotten to that point. I haven't made it that point in my career yet where I'm still learning, and I'm very much enjoying the trajectory and the path that I'm on. And I'm very fortunate to work with, my company and all the people, all the showrunners, everybody I am working with right now. And it's one of those things where if I just keep learning and keep, getting those little nuggets of knowledge and meeting people and just heading on that path, I feel like I will eventually get there. And it may be silly that the end point, or maybe not the end point, but the first initial goal, the next goal is that, that Emmy. But, and beyond that, who knows? But it's just kind of like keep building, keep working on myself, keep working on my craft, and eventually I will get to that zenith.
Yeah.
You said you were writing and producing since middle school. Do you remember those early projects?
Yeah, I have so many, I gotta digitize them. I have so many VHS tapes at my mom's house of just spoof commercial. I remember I did a spoof commercial for K-Swiss.
Nice.
And just I did a volcano movie where we were trying to do a science project for 7th grade. And it was you put the vinegar and whatever, and it sizzles out of the paper mache volcano. But then my dad just put an M80 firecracker in it. It just fucking exploded, and it was hilarious. So I shot a whole movie around that, and just really silly things, just getting out there. But YouTube wasn't around. I had no place to put them, so I just have these old crappy VHS cassettes, and then going through high school. And in high school I was on I took a class where I was basically on a cast of a TV show on our town's cable access network. So we had an hour a week where we had to make a television show, and so you had to audition and basically try to get on this cast, which was pretty tough. But I made it my senior year, and instead of, it was supposed to be a normal news magazine show, what happened the past month in our town. And we kind of made it more of an SNL, where it the segments would start off typical, hey, I'm covering this thing, and then then we all break out in song and dance, and then half of it turns into animation. And it was really fun. And we actually got we won 2 student daytime Emmys in the Eastern region.
That's great.
You made it.
Yeah, I'm already done. But just doing different, and just kind of growing that into everything, all the projects. So it's
that's cool.
I've done so many weird little things.
And nothing on YouTube, or this is all?
I think I have the high school stuff. Mate, is it on YouTube? If not, I
Link
could
in the
upload
bio.
it. Yeah, link in the bio. I think on YouTube I got nominated for Homecoming King in college, and I ran a smear campaign against myself.
And that's how you do it, though.
So I had I made posters all over town or all over the campus where it was me holding my cat, and it was are you really going to vote for a cat person? And
I did the same exact thing. I didn't have any friends going into college, and I was like, how am I going to make friends? Okay, I'll join student body. And I just did a whole bunch of posters of me being Frank from House of Cards. I photoshopped my face onto it.
Oh, wow.
And then my pitch, my whole campaign presentation was how much you shouldn't vote for me.
Yeah.
And they ended up,
And it worked?
And it worked.
Oh,
but then I
nice.
didn't want the job. So I was like, who wants this? And I had the first person that raised their hand, I gave it to them. And
A roller coaster.
they ended up being the student body president for the year. Yeah, that's a thing.
Oh man, but yeah, that's hilarious. You're I finally got where I'm at, and you're I don't
really
want
want
to be here. But then again, it's the journey, not the destination, right?
Yeah.
You had so much fun making those videos and those posters.
I'm
and
just the dog
shaking
chasing
babies, kissing
the
hands.
mailman.
Yeah,
I'm constantly chasing the mailman.
and you get them, and you're I don't like this taste.
I had it's not as funny, but or not funny at all, but I became the homecoming prince thing. And I was oh, this will be fun. And everybody loves me. And then once I got it, I was holy shit, I really don't like this at all. This feels terrible. I feel I've just been I just like realized I don't have like a real friend group because, you know, I was just bouncing around talking to everybody because I didn't have like a solid friend group, and it was like getting little bits of friendship here and there. And then I was like, oh, fuck, like this.
I didn't make anybody.
This sucks.
It was all surface. You're
It was
just
all
like,
surface,
nice
yeah.
to meet you, vote for me. Nice to meet you, vote for me.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
then,
like I wasn't telling anybody to vote for
Yeah.
them, but like on like an emotional level, I guess I was like, love me.
Yeah, please.
You know, please.
I don't need your vote. I need your
I
love.
just need your love. And then sitting on like the float, I was like, by myself. I was like, I don't have any of that love.
Oh no. Very funny.
Hilarious. Yeah. That was the punchline, I guess. Yeah.
Did you also do like a smear campaign against yourself?
I should have, I guess. I don't know.
It was always tomorrow.
Yeah.
I got a lot of content I can help smear you
Smear
for
me?
yourself.
Oh, blackmail me. No, no smear campaigns. No, not yet. Yeah.
I also lived with you in Oklahoma, so I also feel like I have some
you
dirt.
got
Maybe
some
not as
dirt.
much
Okay, we
as
can
you,
add,
but
maybe we'll make a
shit.
smear campaign.
I think I have some photos on my phone of
Oh no.
you wouldn't want out there.
I don't. The real dirt. You're our first listener, actually.
I enjoy how a lot of our shows have been the fodder of your podcasts. Like where you guys have either talked about your experiences or complaints or people you've
God,
worked
the
with.
boss listened to. We do have those 2 episodes that are like pretty much on Farmer Wants a Wife.
Yeah, and I actually just listened. It was Kelsey and Lucy, right?
Kelsey, Lucy, and then we have one where we just literally just us talking about it.
Oh, really?
It was just like a 15
Quick one,
15-minute one of it's
complaints.
called making. No, well, we haven't actually. We can do that now. And
We can complain
Can
now.
we talk about the whole show now that it's
Well,
out?
I mean,
Only good things.
We can't talk about bad things.
I mean, there's a season 2 coming, so
yeah, so no bad things.
Yeah, no bad
Okay.
things.
There are
Then
no
I-
bad things.
then I have
What
no
would
bad
be the
things.
bad things to say anyway?
I have many that I'll say in therapy.
Are you guys going to be on season 2? Do you know yet? Have you?
I mean, we got the
No
kinda-
confirmation, but we're hoping.
Our boss is on it, and she said
Yeah.
that we'll be on it once she knows the dates,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't gotten the exact dates yet.
Yeah.
Well, we don't really know the dates. We can get into it later. It's very much dealing with the writer strike and the soon to be probably actor strike.
But the thing writes itself.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Wait, but we don't have writers or actors.
Well, our host is in the union,
Okay.
and then also too, which is very common, and we were talking about it earlier. Like the strikes back in 07 when the writer strike happened initially, there was a big boon in unscripted. So that's where like Jersey Shore came from. A lot of big game shows came from, and it was just the business was booming. And so everyone thought that something similar was going to happen with this writer strike. And the issue is that networks have stockpiled and downsized and like lowered budgets. They're laying off people because we're in a recession or we're about to be in a recession. So everyone was like, hey, can't wait to get all this work done. And then no one's getting hired, no one's buying shows. So it's a weird thing to be a part of. And so with our show, it's like if there's different checkpoints or benchmarks that if the strike lasts past a certain point, then there's holes in network schedule that they have to quickly fill with other unscripted. So with our show, it's kind of one of those things where it's like it might be this window in January for 8 episodes, or it might be a 14 episode window later on. And so it's just kind of one of those, the schedule keeps shifting, basically. Our dates keep moving around based off of that and a few other factors. But
So like you guys have to pretty much on the fly decide if it's going to be an 8 episode, 14 episode, very much in the air.
yeah. But I mean, we have the creative ready and like we're prepping, all different scenarios, but our line producer's going crazy, constantly making V17 of the schedule. If we start before Labor Day, if we're the 8, or if we start before Labor Day on the 14, it's just,
I see.
yeah. And I feel like a lot of production companies are having, I wouldn't call it an issue, that you have to prepare for all the different scenarios.
Yeah. And what got you into, could we say Farmer Wants a Wife, or?
Yeah. What got me into
what got you into Farmer Wants a Wife? How'd you get in there?
So I work for Eureka Productions. I'm I guess my title is the Vice President of Programming or Development and Programming. And so Farmer Wants a Wife is just one of the shows that I oversee and work on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I oversee development, so basically I help ideate, help build materials to pitch to the networks, and then once a network buys a show like Farmer Wants a Wife, I then switch hats and I basically go on set and a liaison between the production and the network to make sure that, what we pitched them, the vision that we sold them on is seen
that's
in
awesome.
post. And so
you're inside and out on the whole realm of it being made.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
Yeah. And then, we have our own post facility in Australia. So we oversee post and then we deliver it. And then sometimes I do help on social media or, aftercare for the cast. Like I wear a lot of hats, like Jannik has seen on set. I've done a bunch of different things.
How come you ended up going to the farm that I was on? Because there's only one of you, right? For the company, the person that kind of translates between the two worlds.
There were a couple of us for a big show like that. And what's really cool about being at a small company like Eureka is that it's a small knit team. And I helped founded it in it was like 7.5 years ago, January 2016. And so it's a core group of maybe like 4 or 5 guys that I came up with. And they've basically, this is a whole story, but basically they gave me my first assistant job in unscripted, and I've climbed the ladder at this other company with them. And then when that company merged with another company, they were like, hey, like we're going to start this company called Eureka. We want you to come be employee number 1 and basically help us launch this new shingle. And so through there was a rough couple years initially, but then we got caught fire with our first big show called Holy Moley on ABC.
I've heard of that, yeah.
Still going, right?
It's one of those shows that's kind of on the bubble for strike programming. So we have a few shows where, depending how long the strike goes, they're going to trigger Holy Moley and maybe a couple other shows depending on the network. But that show was basically described, the showrunner, I was talking to him recently, and he described it as violent mini golf, which is just perfect because
That's why I've heard of it. Yeah. I know some people that worked on art in that.
Oh, nice. Like
from my last show.
Like Joe Skiff and
very
Narve.
minimal.
Okay.
Mini
golf people. But yeah, they said it was kind of crazy how there's such massive builds that you're kind of making. You're making your own kind of cool, innovative mini golf course.
Burning windmills and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of, we made our own like carnival every night. We shot at night to get that full like neon bright like aesthetic. And then, we basically like tortured the contestants where we had holes where we were like electric shocking them if they missed the putt, if they missed the hole. We had holes where like they're getting hit by giant windmills that are on fire into freezing cold water in, early March up in the mountains of Santa Clarita. So the pools aren't heated. So they come out and they're like steaming because it's so cold. We have them jump in the hot tubs. They can warm back up and go putt again.
These sound like AI generated, like torture scenarios.
Honestly, yeah. If you typed it into like ChatGPT, like how to torture people playing mini golf, they'd be like, here, watch 4 seasons of Holy Moley.
Yeah.
And with your position, how much do you have in the creative of like, oh, let's shock this guy if they don't make a putt, or like where do you play in with this specific job?
Yeah, so like because was early on in development, and basically we were doing a show in Australia called the Ultimate Spartan Race, which is kind of like a the American Ninja Warrior. We were doing that in Australia, and we were basically like, the people for those types of shows are like in their 20s, early 30s, super jacked, in shape. And like, it's great watching them. We were kind of like, what is something that like everyone can do, from like the kids all the way up to grandparents. And then we're like, oh, miniature golf. And then it was like, so how do we supersize miniature golf? And that's kind of what Holy Moley became. And so we started like sketching holes. And like, I grew up like on the Jersey Shore where there's, a miniature golf place on every corner. And so I like was like, oh, I remember this when I was growing up, and like how would I like supersize it? How would I add fire, or how, different things I dreamed of as a kid. And I actually had like a couple holes that I designed just in that early process, like be on set. And it's one of those things where it's like it's a collaborative effort. We had a really great team on that, including with Art telling us what's possible or what's not possible. We brought on mini golf consultants that like run the Masters of Mini Golf in South Carolina, which is kind of like, how would this work from a miniature golf angle? Like, is this actually physically possible, or is this just too out there? Which with Holy Moley, it was never too out there, which was great having a partner with like ABC who were just kind of like, yes, you can make fun of our network. Yes, you can talk about how the budget sucks. Yes, you can talk about you can like, have crazy meetings at the office at ABC. Like they are really great partners to work with.
Because it all works at the end of the day. As long as you're talking about something, whether it's good or bad. It's like what's the saying of like any news is
Any
good
press
news,
is
any
good
press.
press?
Yeah.
It wants people to watch the show.
Yeah, and I think we got lucky too, unfortunately with the pandemic, but like there was no sports, and we had just finished season 2 of the U.S. version. We were doing a hub model, and we had just finished season 2 of the U.S. version. We're in the middle of season 1 of the Australian version when like the pandemic hit, and we were supposed to have like Germans come in and we'll shoot a German version, and then we were talking about maybe France would come in after that, and just basically run it all out of the same course, which is like a production cost saving model called a hub model.
So literally not building anything new, just swapping out the people for different languages.
Basically, yeah,
Interesting.
tweaking some things here and there, but like, keeping the iconic holes like Dutch Courage versus the windmills and different things like that. But, unscripted production kind of goes in that because now it's kind of the budgets are shrinking and it's like, how do we save money? You can amortize costs by going, all right, well, I can build the course, say, hold on, I can build the course for the US audience, but like, while it's up, which costs the most money is to build those crazy sets, how could we, film another version? So we try to sell it in different territories. And we have an office in Sydney, Australia. And so we work in tandem to basically like pitch something here in the US and then try, if it sells, and try to sell it in Australia to kind of have multiple seasons come in to kind of cut down costs. And like we did something similar with The Real Love Boat, which we shot for CBS and Network 10, I believe, in Australia. Cool. And that's where I met Mikan.
Okay. For the Australian one or the CBS one?
The CBS one.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was actually talking about that show on the job before she did Love. Was it Love Boat Island? Or
I think just the Love Boat, right?
The real Love Boat. Yeah.
And yeah, she was. We were trying to get on that. We were like, do you need 2 more?
Yeah, we want to be on the Love Boat.
Yeah,
that was fun because it was every day I was like in a new country.
Yeah,
and like I grew up going on cruises, but I never really spent that much time in Europe.
And that was during the pandemic, right?
That was last summer, especially with the pandemic. Like we shot a show in what was it? The summer, July 2021, July 2021, where it was called The Real Magic Mike. And if you're starting to catch up, we start doing shows that starts like The Real, and then we just tag the IP behind it.
I can only imagine.
We're the real guys, you have some IP, we'll make it real.
Yeah.
But so it was like right before July 4th. Or no, it was right after. So basically that summer, if we recall, everyone was like, oh, like COVID's over. Let's go all have fun. And on 4th of July, they had like a Garth Brooks concert, a big UFC fight, all in Vegas. So all these people flocked to Vegas, and basically that's where the Delta variant was born. It was like ground zero for Delta.
Yeah,
so we were there like a week after starting to shoot the show. And like half the crew, half the cast got ill with COVID. And so we were like locked down in a hotel. And then kind of part of my job is just, I have to be like adaptable and like very versatile so that I could, I basically became like the head COVID officer and helped like oversee that to make sure everyone's being safe and following like these super strict guidelines so that we could finish the show on time. Because a lot of productions, depends on what production company, which network you're working for, they will or will not cover additional COVID costs. So it was one of the like delays and everything that's associated with it. So it was one of those things was like, all right, we have to get super strict, and you can only leave your hotel room to go, to go to set and come back. And so it was tough, but one of those things where just like, to make the best show possible, we have to just stay on schedule and make sure no one else gets sick.
I mean, that flexibility seems to be kind of the name of the game, and just, I guess, kind of being honest really about what the situation is. I remember I recently watched that Farmer Wants a Wife episode where Landon's dad, the thing with Landon's dad happens. And, that was like I remember when we were shooting it, that was like a huge wrench in the gears. But, you got the way you guys presented it was just like, this is what happened. Like there's it is reality TV, and there's a lot of, staging things to make the story work, but in the end of the day, it is like real people having real issues, and you just kind of
and I feel like the old style of reality is kind of just like brushing under the rug and like we'll ignore it and like we'll just piece it together when we do film it, but like we're trying to put the real back in reality because a lot of people are just like, oh, it's fake, it's scripted, and there are some things like I always think of it as kind of like a mouse in a maze trying to get the cheese. It's like we built up the maze, we put the cheese at the end, we put the mouse at the beginning, but like if the mouse gets there or when or how, what path, like that's what's real. We kind of build up these constructs. And with like Landon, like it was such a gut punch. I've recently lost someone really close to me, and so like when it happened to him, it was kind of like, this is the most important thing. Like we're making a silly TV show about like you trying to find love, but like family comes first,
and it's life. Like this is what matters.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that you all gave him the space, and it wasn't like, oh, we got to get this show, because it happened around like the week that
like
people
worst timing possible. There's a good timing. But.
No time is a good time, but I'm sure there was a lot of money put in to kind of give him the time he needed to be with his family, and then come back and finish the rest of the show off.
And he actually was the one that, a couple weeks later, we shut down production on his farm for a while, I think maybe a handful of weeks. And then he was the one that was kind of like, I'm ready to get back to the farm and, continue my, my love journey. And which we're like, are you sure? Like, it's your call. And he was like, absolutely. And that's where we got back together and shot that really cool finale on that farm.
Yeah, I thought it was a really nice thing that he kind of brought out of it, which was his father wanted him to always finish what he started, and that's kind of the lesson he took from it, and it ended up being a kind of a really sweet moment for the show, I thought.
And I want to say on the record that I did enjoy my time on Parma Once a Wife.
I hope.
If you go back, there's other records of saying something different.
We'll be correcting those records.
On this record. On this specific record. It's something that, like, I think on the past podcasts, when we were recording that's near the end of the show, and near at the end of every show, I like near the end of this last show I was on, I don't want to talk to any of those people right now. Right now though, that's just a right now thing. And like, it's just, I think it's so much work, and your mind is just so in it that you just want to push it all away. But I know a month after Farmer Wants a Wife, I was like, oh, when's it coming back on? I want to go back. Same with this show. I worked on The Amazing Race, and I just came back literally yesterday. Right now, I don't want anything to do with it, but I know I'm gonna want that fix, want that almost that drug to go back within a month from now.
Yeah. On one of your podcasts, you're saying something similar, and I always think of it as kind of like an addiction to adrenaline. We're adrenaline junkies, because when you're out there in the field, and you're kind of like, we're shooting in 2 minutes, and you have so much more work that to get done that's not going to be done in time. So you have to start like putting out fires and cutting things down, and you're kind of like, I don't know. I feel like I'm really in my element when I am like hair's on fire I have to get this done.
The problem has to be solved
immediately,
and that's why we are picked for this job, because at the end of the day, you can be the best artist, you can be the best producer, whatever it is, but you need to be the best of this under pressure in a time constraint with everybody relying on you. And some people just can't do that. Yeah. And it sounds like you are somebody that time and time in all these jobs have been that person to take out the fires and get these things going on the time that it needs to be to happen. I would ask, why do you keep going back? What because I know why I do it.
Crazy bastard.
But because we're all
sick in the head.
We're all crazy people. And I truly believe that we're all crazy people that are in the film industry. But what keeps you crazy, essentially?
Yeah, I love it. And I honestly, besides like it being like an adrenaline junkie thing, like I just really love making television and having fun with the people around me. Like we had a blast on our farm. And honestly, it was under some really strenuous, like rough times, but it's the people I work with, the stories I tell, and the talent I work with, and it's one of those things too, where what's really cool about my job is kind of I skirt both sides of like being the development, like office in the executive type, but then also too, when we sell the show, I'm then like basically on the freelance production side. And I feel like if I did both, or if I did one of the two, I would get bored. I'd be bored of being on set. It'd drive me crazy, or I'd be bored in the office. But I like it's a good break between where it's like, all right, I'm in the office for a couple months, and then I sell a show, and then I'm on set for a couple months.
Yeah.
It's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
And you get to kind of see like the puppeteer playing essentially of like the office is always the blueprints and seeing, oh yeah, this is how the show is going to look. And then you actually go to the show and see how, okay, this isn't going to happen, but how could we make it as close to how we thought it was going to happen? Just because life happens and you can't control it like you can in narrative, where it's like the lighting's going to be exactly here and this is going to be where the sunset hits. It's like, this is reality. This is like, we got to just use the elements that we have.
Yeah. And what I do like about is working at like Eureka specifically is that my job's pretty unique. Like I've worked at other production companies where it's like, you're in development, you know, I always felt it was like something off about being like pregnant with an idea for months or years. And then you finally sell it and then you hand it off to someone else and you go, all right, hopefully maybe I'll see a cut before it airs, but if not, I'll tune into Fox, you know, and see this thing that I've spent so much time. It's like giving up a child after years of rearing it and then kind of be like, all right. And then in those situations, like, all right, well now make a new one, you know, and it's kind of
making kids,
just making kids. And so it's, so I really do enjoy moving, you know, onto production, but also too, with everything changing, like I like working with people like you guys, where it's kind of like, I think it's important to know what you know and what you don't. And so when I'm in those situations where my guys, like we have 5 minutes we have to start the scene, like, what do you think is possible? I can rely on you guys and your expertise to be like, all right, I can do this, this, and this. I know you wanted that, but that's not possible because you say, 'cause the sun's coming this way or that. And I like that collaboration because I hate, you know, executives or producers that kind of walk in a situation, like act like they know everything without hearing all the information or, you know, talking to the actual experts in their departments.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this, that I think that's for me, the drug that gives me going back and back and back is the people. You get to meet the coolest people in the world that are the crew making this happen. And, why I joined art is because art is that connection to every department. I need to talk to the sound guys to make sure that the build that I do isn't going to echo and cause a sound issue. I need to talk to the camera team to make sure that the 360 space I do has a foreground and has a background so they can have a cool element. And it's like you're the connection to all these pieces, and I get to meet these people and have a connection with them through the process. And like that's no other job can give you that. That's why I do it.
I wanted to ask you a question. Raising my hand.
Yes, you, sir, in the gray shirt.
Thank you. So for a long time, I thought reality TV was stupid like everybody else. And then in college, I had this very cool teacher and like wise and insightful teacher who it was a class on reality TV, and he kind of taught us that reality TV is just like a reflection pretty much of what's going on in society and what society kind of wants, and it hyperbolizes that and kind of reflects that, and is actually, it's a trap to think that you're smarter than reality TV. And I'm always finding myself now, since taking that class, defending reality TV to people that are like, oh, I feel like society is like, especially older people, society is crumbling, and why are we watching these like just horny people on TV like make these stupid decisions? And sure, there's a lot of bad reality TV, but what would you say to somebody that is just doubting reality TV as like a format?
Yeah, it's crazy that you had a class about reality TV, because I mean, especially in my college, but when I was there, I don't know about it anymore. Temple University, shout out. But reality TV wasn't like an option for me. Like it was like you're going to be like film or television. You know, obviously there's comedy or drama television, or you're going to do different types of genres of film. And then when I got out here, I was working at Fremantle Media, which does like American Idol, America's Got Talent. And I worked there basically in their like digital media services department, where I was basically coding metadata style sheets to upload videos and images and audio files to like iTunes, Netflix, Hulu. And it was kind of like my foot in the door. And I enjoyed it, but it was kind of like, this is something I could do at home back on the East Coast in like my mom's basement. So I like saved a bunch of money and I basically left. I kind of left it up to the universe of like, I want to be in television. I want to be in development. Like, where am I going to go? So I went on a bunch of different interviews. I think I did like 50 or odd some in like 2 months, where I was just kind of like hitting the pavement every day and like general meetings, coffees, interviews. And I eventually met Chris Colvinor, who was the head of development at Shine America and mainly in Unscripted. And he was really impressed by a couple stories I told him about working in like New York and in Philly. And so we really hit it off, and basically he hired me as his assistant. Now, like, he was one of the ones who founded Eureka, and I've been with him for basically my whole career. But it was one of those things where it was like, before really meeting with him, he was kind of the one that kind of showed me that was like, hey, reality is not just like guilty pleasure, which is a lot of it gets labeled as, which is, it has like a negative connotation to it. And I understand if like the Kardashians or Housewives isn't your cup of tea, but everyone at some point has like one or a few reality shows that they absolutely love because they can relate to it, because it is rooted in reality, you know, and so there is some relatability to it. Yeah,
for me.
Yeah, because you're always out in the woods naked.
Always out in the woods.
Yeah. Kind of scary.
There's a lot of diarrhea. That's very relatable.
Dysentery is an issue as an Oregonian. If anyone gets that reference, Oregon Trail.
And that's what I love about development as well. Is like an idea is never dead. You know, it's always shelved, because you can pitch something and say, like, we had a project where it was built around a talent's interest, and then they got canceled for a variety of reasons. And so it was one of those things where it's like, great, well, this isn't going to sell, you know, and we put it back on the shelf. And it's one of those things where it's like, if we found the right piece of talent, we can basically build it and tweak it and take it back out and it'd be like a brand new show. And so there's a lot of times where we do have shows for a reason, either just got pitched out, no one bought it, that you can dust off and you know, bring back to life.
Yeah.
Do you have, and I'm sorry, I did cut you off. So if there's more you have to say, you can say. We were talking about your origin story and going and get interview after interview,
and what your mentor figure said about reality TV not being just like this stupid thing. Yeah, there's more to it.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where it's just like, these are real people, and we're telling their stories. You know, they're trusting us to tell their stories, and there's like a real earnest, genuine interest in doing that. And as long as you're looking at it as art, you know, they're trusting you to do it, and how you're going to treat it as art and basically broadcast it out to millions of people. It's a fun thing. I don't know.
Yeah. My question going into that, especially going into the stuff that you kind of push aside and maybe it would happen in the future, is there a project that maybe you don't even want to say it, so no one takes it, but there's probably a few projects that you have like that you dream to make one day.
Yeah, it's one of the things where I really can't say too much about those things, but there have been projects where I've spent, like I partnered with a buddy at Spotify who I went to college with. So it was one of those cool, like, hey, we knew each other when we were like 17, and now we're, you know, in our late 20s, we're producing a show for a broadcast network, but it ended up not, you know, we shot the pilot and it got kicked around a couple different networks within this one portfolio, and ended up not happening. And like, it was a gut punch, because it was one of those things where, like, it was just, I loved the cast that we found. I loved the stories that they were telling, but it was one of those things where, like, it just didn't resonate with like what the network wanted. And then we pitched it out again, and then they kind of just not the right time for the project. But it happens a lot. You know, there's a lot of rejections. There's hundreds and hundreds of no's before you get like a yes, especially when it comes to something new like Holy Moley. Like, that wasn't established IP. We were lucky enough to get it across the line because we attached Stephen Curry from the NBA's Golden State Warriors, and he was really passionate about golf. And we had great hosts with Joe and Rob and Jeannie. So we got lucky. But a lot of the things that we do sell now are either have like big A+ talent attached, or it's like well-known IP, like a Magic Mike or a Love Boat. Because I mean, you see it in film, right? It's just sequels, prequels, and so it's happening as well in reality TV. So getting something across the line, like original idea, like that one thing that I partnered with my buddy from Spotify, like that got killed, was like, it's really tough to get across the line. So I feel like that one hurts even more, you know, because I feel like we're getting very repetitive sometimes with the stories that we're telling.
What was the process of making that pilot with your friend? You guys pitched it, like, did you guys you already made it? You filmed it, like the entire thing?
Yeah. So like there's different steps in development when you sell to the network. It's not automatically a green light. There's different levels. So there's like, the first level would be like paper development, where they're like, hey, we like this idea, but the network is like, we like this idea, but we want to see more. Like, what would potentially a season look like? So I work and like write like hundreds of books, basically like show Bibles, where I'm kind of like, oh, okay, so like one main character would be Jannik, and he did, he's looking for love on his farm, and I basically like script out a whole season of like your story. But then also, as you saw in like Farmers, there's 4 farmers. So I'll script out what you would see across a whole season, plus potential hosts, plus what the show's about at its core, plus maybe I talk to art and basically get an aesthetic for the show. So that's like paper development. Then if they like that and they go, okay, great, we don't want to do a green light, but let's do a casting step. So basically they could say, go out and find, the host or the couples or, the judges. And so you do a whole casting step. And then if they like that, they maybe go, okay, shoot a presentation, which is kind of like a half of a pilot, maybe do a couple acts of the show. If they like that, they go, okay, shoot a whole pilot, but this won't be for air. Because there's a difference between unairable pilots or actual pilots. So these are ones that are just going to be internal. So I kind of like those sometimes because you get to use like music and found footage and different things to kind of bridge the gap between,
you don't have to license anything because it's not going to
exactly.
Right.
And then it helps with budgets because sometimes these steps are only a couple $1,000s each. And so you have to really make ends meet and get creative about like, oh, like there's a scene from this one movie I can splice in here that will kind of like connect this act and this act as we're putting together.
And is this Eureka saying, okay, here's your budget, go and do this step of this process?
It's basically the network will order it from us. They'll be like, hey, we want a casting step. Here's a tranche of money. Here's $25,000 or something.
You and Eureka making it and then trying to show it to the production company.
Yeah, and so they exclusively have the rights to whatever we make. And so internally we go, all right, we have $25,000. Let's definitely look for the host. Let's, flesh out, put some money into like casting the couples or the singles or whatever the format of the show is. And then spend a little bit of money on building like a pitch deck that we'll have physically printed. Yeah. It's basically television sales. I'm constantly just trying to get the network to say yes. And there's all these different steps to eventually series green light, which is kind of the end of these little development steps.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I think the question, I keep going off on tangents, but the question was about the podcast or the Spotify show that I was working on.
Yeah, just like the process, which you did explain.
This family did a podcast on the Spotify network, and my buddy was the head of pictures at Spotify, and basically was like, I have this awesome family, don't really know what to do with them, but I think it'd be great to partner with you guys and just kind of throw stuff on the wall and see what sticks. So we took a couple years of basically, maybe it's a big competition format where people are going to this town and they're doing X, Y, and Z. And they were like, well, maybe it's a docu. And so basically we kept tweaking the format and pitching it out to see if anybody and basically the market will tell you, right? So basically we're like, hey, here's a competition format. So we pitched it out and all the networks were kind of like, not for us. We're like, all right, we have to change it up because we knew there was really something special with this talent. So then we kind of switched it to like a comedy, like a lighthearted comedy docu, kind of like a Schitt's Creek or a Ted Lasso type where everything's positive. We sold it to a network for a unairable pilot presentation, did it all up, and then kind of it went through the different networks in this company's portfolio and ended up just getting passed on. So, but all of that took years. I think the initial lunch I had with my buddy was like in October 2018 or 2019, and then we just found out it got passed on maybe like a month or two ago. Yeah. And that's the thing, is a lot of hurry up and wait, which is a very common phrase in our production, but also development, and just a lot of no's to get a single yes. And so like while I'm working on that one show, there are roughly 30 or 40 other shows in different stages of ideation to post and delivery that I have to be across, because the company won't be successful if I just focus on one show at a time and wait for that, because there's so much downtime in there.
How does your life management work with having all these specific things that you have are different processes and have to worry about that? Where does your life come into play with that?
Yeah, like how do you have the brain for? I was also thinking like the brain for that. I feel like I would go crazy thinking of having to have so many things actively in my head. You know,
it's tough, and it helps to have a really good team, you know, that you work with. But yeah, there's just constantly so many different shows and so many different things I'm trying to think of and keep you know the plate spinning the balls in the air as I'm trying to juggle everything. And then on top of that, I have like a normal life too. You know, I have a partner, I have a family, I have, you know, hobbies, interests, friends, but things tend to fall to the wayside as you're, you know, in the Mediterranean for 2 months, and then I get home for 2 weeks, and then I'm in the UK for another month and a half, and then I get home for a week or two, and then I'm on the farm for 2 months. It's one of those things, like I have a really good support system of people that like can put up with me going absent for 2 months.
Well, I'm seeing that my life is turning into that, which is kind of where I want to be, and it's what I wanted, of getting paid to travel and doing film in some aspect, and that's where I am. But now I'm seeing, okay, I'm getting what I want, but now how do I manage all the other things I want in my life, as well as continuing to do this? And it sounds like you've been doing this for, you have a lot of experience in this. And what are some of your pros and cons that you have in having this profession?
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning a lot, and I was told like early on by one of my mentors, it was like, the more you can learn about different departments and different facets of the industry, the better off you are. And because my ultimate goal is to kind of be a showrunner on a show that I developed and created, and kind of, because and I feel like I'm on a good trajectory for that. But it's one of those things where like I'm constantly learning, and you have to be, especially in development when you're researching things. You know, like I really didn't know much about, say, miniature golf, but you know, you have to become like the in-house expert, because if you're in a pitch and the network's like, well, what if this random thing happens? You have to be able to have a legit answer, because that's the one thing the networks are always trying to poke holes and figure out how could this format fall apart. Because you know, it makes sense, they're investing in something, and they would hate for it to just, you know, halfway through production, like the format breaks and you're like, oh crap, I guess we have to restart. No one's got that money. So constant learning, and like you said, traveling. Like I think as a goal as a kid, I always wanted to like live in another country for a certain amount of time. And basically when I was just in Malaysia for a couple months beginning of this year working, and I had like in my passport, I have like a visa immigration stamp from like the country of Malaysia. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually kind of like a little like work visa citizen in this foreign country. It's really cool. But I do get caught up in it a lot. And it's one of those things where, I don't know if you guys experience it, but it's like, there's just so much shit going on all the time. And you get stressed, and you're in the car, and you're driving, and you're kind of like, I get this pitch, and then I also have to finish this deck, and like we're talking about, I'm juggling all these things, and you kind of lose sight of just like, oh my God, like I'm in Los Angeles, or I'm in this country, I'm making television, and I'm like it's going on air, and I'm getting credit, and like I'm having a lot of fun, but those are things that kind of fall to the wayside when you're like stressing out. But it's not brain surgery. It's not rocket science, you know? And I feel like coming at shows where it's kind of like Holy Moly, where it's like very light and fun. It's like people watching the show can feel that come through the television. If you're stressed out and people are yelling and it's just like a miserable environment to work in,
you can feel it.
You can feel it when you're sitting on the couch, you know?
I've had many just in the last month, and I wish I can explain all these things, but the show's not going to be coming out within like next year. But like having like stress breakdowns, and then like of just like literally like almost into tears of like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then I think about the actual thing that I'm doing, like, because it's challenge based, and some of these challenges are wacky and absurd. And it's like, oh my God, this is what I'm getting stressed out about. Like it's almost like, I guess I can relate it to, comedians in a writer's room, duking it out. Like, I guess, Monty Python, their first huge argument was, their first sketch about, these goats on a tree, and that was the whole sketch. It was just goats on a tree, and their whole argument was, should it be goats or sheep on the tree? And they didn't talk for 2 months after this huge argument, because half of the team wanted sheep, half of the team wanted goats. But that was their whole life. And like it reminds me of with reality TV, like some of these like how do I make this mini golf thing work? and that's what's like is the thing that is causing the stress. And that's kind of what when I realize, okay, what am I stressed about? Okay, should I be stressed about
sheep or
this?
goats is what you're stressed about.
Sheep or goats. And then I just detach and I just try to step away, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
It's just sheep and goats.
Yeah. I'm going to use that next time I'm like, in the throes of it, and just be like, oh, what am I going to do? Oh, sheep or goats?
Sheep or goats. It's fine.
Back to the like work-life balance thing a little bit, specifically with your relationship and just being away from home so much. Do you have any like tips or tricks? Do you bring something to your hotel room to make it feel like home? Is it a lot of FaceTiming? How do you keep those things alive?
It does help if you can bring them along. Which I found out in Malaysia because I missed her.
Fun.
I missed her birthday because I was one of those, and I've just been consecutively gone for basically. We moved in a couple years ago, and like 2 days later, I started this like run of just never being home, and so that was real rough. But it does help if you can bring them along, or like you said, FaceTiming and little recordings and stuff like that, because it does get tough. And even like my family on the East Coast, I've been pretty removed for them for like a decade just because I live out here on the West Coast. But like, my sister's getting older. She's about to have her first child, but about to be an uncle. It's one of those things. It's like, I feel like I'm starting to miss out on some stuff. Yeah. And so that's kind of the hardest part is kind of, being away all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's just something you have to sacrifice, or is there like...
Yeah, I think it's something to sacrifice, and kind of one of those things where it's like, I've worked so hard to get where I'm currently at, and like maybe it's like a few more years of just constantly being busy before I'm like at the next level where I can actually prioritize like, oh, I'm actually not going to take this job. I'm going to be home for this, or, I can maybe settle down, have a family. Like there's different things where I just don't want it to stop right now. I feel like I've just worked so hard to get where I'm at. And it's like, if I continue to bust my ass, I can, afford, the life simple pleasures later.
So you think with like rank, I guess, you get a little bit more of that back.
Yeah. So if it's like my ultimate goal, trying to be like, or becoming a showrunner, I could choose what projects I work on, and then just fully throw myself into that single project. So I'm not doing 30 or 40 at the same time. Yeah. So then the plan being I can actually
spend the rest of the year.
Spend the rest of the year with friends, family, and having a life a little bit.
Right. Yeah. The dream.
And that kind of leads us into like kind of a slight closure question of you have an interesting level of experience comparatively to a lot of most of the people that we've been interviewing, which is you're kind of in the place where you want to be, it sounds like. And with the show called Haven't Made It Yet, I assume that you do have a place where you want to be. So I would love to hear in about like 5 years time, 5-10 years, where do you see yourself? What do you want in your life, in your career? Anything of that? Yeah,
I mean, I think I brushed on it a little bit, but it's definitely being like a prolific, showrunner, especially on a show that I've created or developed, working with the best networks and the best crew and team, because I feel like it's just about the people you work with and just having a great time. And then, like I said, choosing the projects that I feel I align with, on my views or my beliefs or just overall, It's kind of it. And then like having a really good work-life balance.
Yeah.
That's been a common one for sure. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But the whole thesis kind of this podcast is to freeze you in time so that you can later in many years from now look at this again and listen to yourself. And with that in mind, this is your time to record a message for yourself, to yourself. In like 10 years.
All right. Yo. Hey, Nick. It is past you. Just letting you know to, really stay in the moment and enjoy yourself. Like it might sound cheesy, but it's the journey, not the destination. So make sure you're having, fun as you continue to climb. Also to change the Brita filter. It's been 10 years since you've switched that out.
They last 10 years, right? Isn't that what they say?
I thought so. I don't know. I'm too busy to read the back of the filter.
Yeah. Note to future Hayden too. Let's do that as well. Because I think
it's a big takeaway from this.
Yeah, everybody actually just check your Brita filters, because I don't know if anyone actually changes those out.
We're just drinking bad water.
I don't use a bit of tap water, so not a problem of mine.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So you're constantly changing your whole immune system.
How do you feel?
I think I got maybe another 3 years on my liver. Then I gotta change that out.
Are you growing another arm or something?
I mean, yellow water. I mean, could be worse, I guess.
Yellow water? Isn't that urine?
In Van Nuys, it can be. It's more yellow than urine in Van Nuys.
More cleansed, honestly. Yeah. Well, any final thoughts?
Just thank you guys for having me, and hopefully people listen in.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a lot. Honestly, like I really appreciate you talking. You're living the life I'm wanting to live, and I'm seeing myself on this trajectory. So that's why a lot of these questions are popping up, just because I just kind of see, okay, if this is where I want to go, how is someone who's doing this right now doing it and keeping sane? You have this very confident presentation, and I appreciate you being on.
No, of course. Thank you for having me. And it was one of those things where because I do so much, I feel like I've loosely touched some things, but like if you ever want to talk off air or on air again, like let me know, because that's one of the things I do really enjoy about my job. Basically how I got my first job was all through networking and people paying it forward. And so I always try to like pay it forward and like talk to undergrads or take on mentees and just kind of like help out people in any way, because like I wouldn't be where I am today without people reaching their hand out down and pulling me up.
When you talk about time and time and throughout this interview, you're talking about mentors, this mentor to this mentor, and it sounds like now you're getting to kind of be that person for other people, which is great.
Yeah, it's very rewarding, but it's not like I'm doing it for like an ego boost or anything. No. It's like literally like I would not be in your living room today, if it wasn't for all these kind people who have helped me out. So I really try to, spend a lot of time helping out other people.
Yeah. And this is a studio space. Keep in mind, not a living room.
Oh, sorry.
The people at home don't know.
They don't know.
No, it's fine. No, it sounds like a living room. But we will get, that's our 5-year plan to something.
Getting a studio.
Studio space.
Well, I mean, I guess the open question still is, do you have like any advice that you usually give maybe in your mentorship, or beyond just finding a mentor? I'm sure that's on the list.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big things I feel like a lot of people tend to forget is just like you have everything like in your pocket with your phone to create an amazing whatever you want, a series or a film, and typically, especially like in school or anywhere online, you guys can find, if you want to be a set decorator, if you want to be a director, if you want to be an actor, just find like-minded people and get out there and just shoot, because you learn something new from every project that you work on. And it's one of those things where it's like your first few projects may suck and you never want to see the light of day, but you learn something and you can apply when you're in these different scenarios. Even now, of some of my first projects, I'm on set and I'm like, oh, that's right, this happened to me once before. I know now how to react, or I know how to like right the ship and just go out and create, because it's just so much simpler now. Like I remember in college, you'd have to go to the equipment locker and wait in long line to hopefully maybe get a camera so you might be able to shoot something. And now I can shoot 4K for hours on my cell phone with crisp audio and so it's just one of those things where it's like you have everything at your fingertips. Just go out and create.
No excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're what is it? It's like sports analogy, but like there's no defense in art, right? It's basically you're the only one preventing yourself from going out there and making it. So, and that's very hard. Like the blank page is very scary, but you just have to push through if that's really something you want to do.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure
for having me in your $1 million studio.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, it's so shiny. So much gold.
The walls are gold.
I'd say the gold toilet was probably a little too much, but it felt great on my butt.
They didn't need it at the Mar-a-Lago, so we stole it.
You got it on discount.
Got it on discount. I guess it's hard to find gold toilets nowadays.
You'll get your custom diamond-studded watch on the way out, and then we give it all our guests.
Yeah, that's great.